so you're gonna just to hear my voice. My name is Maria Galloso. I'm a principal planner from the City of Tucson Planning and Development Services Department. I'm gonna offer the Spanish interpretation services, so I'll switch to Spanish for a moment. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es María Galloso, soy un planeador principal para el Departamento de Planeación y Servicios al Desarrollo de la ciudad de Tucson. Estamos aquí en la reunión para discutir las viviendas accesorias en nuestro código de zonificación. Y si alguien aquí presente va a necesitar que esta reunión sea traducida al español, por favor hágamelo saber y con mucho gusto vamos a hacer las interpretaciones al español. También durante la sesión que vamos a tener de grupos pequeños para discutir también puede ser realizada en español. Así es que si hay alguien aquí, por favor, que quiere que se traduzca en español, dígalo ahora o pónganlo en el chat. Muchas gracias.
Okay, well, thank you, Maria. Hi, everybody. This is Bill Leonards. I'm your facilitator today, speaking to you from Portland, Oregon. I am not on the mountain, but it would be nice. But I'm very pleased and honored to be with you today. I want to thank you for giving this time on behalf of your own community. So I'm going to be the facilitator, and that kind of means that I'm here to support a respectful and productive community discussion about ADUs. We got a lot to do today. We have an hour and a half, so we're going to start on time and end on time. This staff has spent 6 months listening and taking in feedback from the community, and now they have a draft proposal on how to allow ADUs in Tucson. So we're going to go through this proposal in some detail and have time for your feedback. But we have, let's see, how many do we have here? 52 people, wow. Okay, so as you can imagine, we need to work together here to make sure everybody has a time to speak. So we have a crafted agenda that should allow that to happen. But first of all, why are we here? So on the board here, we're here to build a shared understanding. Make sure you understand what are ADUs and how they could benefit the community. They're going to share what was heard at the first meetings in February and through online comments, and then present a draft, that's capital draft letters proposal based on this input. So this is a work in progress, okay? Listening to your ideas on how to improve this draft. They have to take this and improve it and take it back, as you'll see, for the next step in the process. Allow you guys, community, to have dialogue with your community, your fellow community members, and make sure everybody understands the next steps. So that's our purpose. Let's see what our agenda is here, Dan. Next slide. Okay, so the agenda is basically, we're welcoming you. There's going to be some background from staff and what we've heard. Dan will present the draft proposal for ADUs and feedback, and then feedback. We're going to have 45 minutes set aside for feedback. And with this many people, the best way to do it is to break into some small groups. And we're going to do that by topic. You're going to get a chance to actually pick which topics you want to talk about, the most important things to you. We're going to have 2 polls. One poll will be happening before the small groups about what's important to you. And then the next poll that you really want to stick around for at the end, after your feedback groups, is how do you feel about this project in terms of your support? And then we'll close out with next steps. So with that, thank you, and we'll pass it on. Oh, thank you. There are some agreements here for us to work together to let everybody speak. So be concise. Try to spend no more than a minute or 2 before you allow someone else to speak, and then we can come back to you. Respect the time. Let's use the chat. The chat's been incredible in this whole thing. Asking staff questions, getting back to you quickly. Use the chat throughout. Be respectful of others' differing viewpoints. Yes, believe it or not, there are different viewpoints on this subject. So respect that. And then just stay on topic and we'll do just fine. So now it is time for Corin. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. And thank you all again for being here tonight. My name is Corin Manning. I'm Planning Administrator for the City of Tucson. in the Department of Planning and Development Services. I want to first just share a little bit about accessory dwelling units. So we're all kind of operating from the same basic foundation of what ADUs are and why we're talking about them for Tucson. So an accessory dwelling unit is a independent housing unit with its own kitchen, bathroom, living and sleeping space. The kitchen is very important, as we will discuss further in just a minute. These units are smaller than a typical home. They're usually under about 1,000 square feet, and they are meant to be accessory to a primary residence, so built on the same lot as a primary residence. There's a lot of terms you may be familiar with or have heard over the years for these types of units. You often hear them referred to as a casita, just a small dwelling, a mother-in-law unit, granny flat, backyard cottage, carriage house. So those are some of the terms you might have heard. Next slide, please. And what do they look like? So there's a number of different forms accessory dwelling units can take. They can be detached. That's kind of the most classic example, if you will, and that's the image on the top left, that diagram of a completely separate structure, separate from the main structure, a smaller little casita, if you will. There's also ADUs that can be attached to a main home. It could be an addition, or it could be a portion of the house that has been divided and turned into its own unit. We also see attics and basements turned into accessory dwelling units. Not as common in Tucson, given our the types of homes and built form that we have here, but what we do see in Tucson more often is garage conversions or carport enclosures and conversions. So those are just a couple options for the form of ADU. Next slide. So casitas or accessory dwelling units do exist in Tucson already. We have these across our city. We will explain a little bit more how these can be built today. But on some lots, if your lot is large enough, you can do a small second unit, or in some cases, people have done sleeping quarters or guest quarters that sometimes function similar to an accessory dwelling unit. So there are ways to do them, although they're not very easy to build. You really need a larger lot in Tucson. So the previous photo was of the exterior. You could see that ADU was accessed from the alley. It can also be accessed through a courtyard. So that gives you kind of a visual. Next slide, you can see an interior shots of what they might look like on the inside. Accessory dwelling units are usually small-ish units, often a studio or one bedroom. That's very typical. So people get very creative and make very efficient use of space in these units, as you can see in this photo. Next slide. So why are we talking about accessory dwelling units? Why have we all come together tonight and at these other meetings? And why is this something that we think might benefit Tucson? So there's a couple overarching goals that we have as a community that we feel accessory dwelling units can help address. One is our need for affordable housing. So as we all are probably aware, Tucson has a real need for housing in general, and especially affordable housing. Many of our households, especially renter households, are housing cost burdened, meaning they spend more than 30% of their income on housing costs, either rent or their mortgage. And increasingly, it's getting even harder to find affordable housing in our community. So that's one goal that we have in Tucson. Another issue is housing options for seniors. Our population here in Tucson, like many other places, is aging. And people want different options as they age. A lot of people want to be able to stay in their neighborhood and age in place. So either moving into a smaller unit, building a unit on their property that they can move into and either rent out the larger unit or have family members come live in the larger unit, or maybe stay in the home they live in today and have a caregiver or a family member come live in an accessory dwelling unit on site. So that's another major goal as a community, is providing more housing options for seniors. And then the third major goal to mention is climate action and resiliency. Just last fall, our mayor and council declared a climate emergency for Tucson, and we see that our climate is warming, and we really need to take action to mitigate climate change and make our community more resilient. accessory dwelling units are one way that we can build inward rather than outward in our community. So rather than building out into the desert, we can make better use of our existing infrastructure, meaning our existing water and sewer lines and roads and transit, by building more density in our city that can utilize that infrastructure. So accessory dwelling units are one way to provide some more housing that is accessible to transit, helps create more walkable neighborhoods. And these are also often smaller footprint homes that are very energy efficient. So these are some major goals for our city: affordable housing, climate action, and there's no easy solution on these topics. So accessory dwelling units are by no means the only strategy we are pursuing on any of these major goals. But they're one option that can be a piece of the larger puzzle on these various topics. Next slide. This project began in November of last year when Mayor and Council initiated this code amendment and directed staff to begin the process of looking at our code and developing an amendment to make it easier to build accessory dwelling units in Tucson. Based on that direction, staff has been doing a bit of research and analysis. We've looked at a lot of other communities across the country that have allowed accessory dwelling units. This is something we see many cities have enabled, and even entire states in recent years. So there's a lot of great research and models out there to look at. We've also analyzed our own zoning here in Tucson and analyzed specific neighborhoods and sites and kind of done test fits of how accessory dwelling units could fit in our existing neighborhoods. We've brought on Opticos Design, a design firm, to help with that. And some of those folks are in this meeting, and you might meet them in our breakout groups. At the same time, we've also been doing outreach to hear from the community and better understand the goals and needs for Tucson. We established a stakeholder group based on input from Mayor and Council, and that group includes architects, real estate professionals, housing advocates, neighborhood representatives, a whole variety of folks. That's been meeting monthly for the past 6 months. We also have held a series of public meetings in February earlier this year where we got a lot of input about people's goals and concerns. And based on that and other feedback, we developed a draft proposal that we are going to share today. So red dot is the we are here in May. We've also been doing an online survey that gave us a lot of great inputs as well. So after this today, the project will go through kind of the public review phase where we present to different boards and commissions. We did present this proposal to the Commission on Equitable Housing and Development in April and got some great feedback from that group. Once we have a draft zoning proposal, so actual zoning text, we will do a study session with the Planning Commission, targeting late June for that. And then Planning Commission also holds a public hearing. That would be in late July. And Mayor and Council also would hold a public hearing on this item, potentially in September. So there will be numerous other opportunities for public comment and input along the way. Next slide. So a little more about the input that we've received. I mentioned before that we held a series of public meetings in February. We had about 200 people attend those over the course of 3 virtual meetings. We did an online survey and got 77 comments. About 39 of those were expressed various concerns and sometimes ideas for how to improve this code amendment, and 37 were very supportive. We also have a stakeholder group, as I mentioned. There's 40 members of that group that have been meeting monthly, and they have held 6 meetings so far and have a couple more on the calendar. So that's a little bit about the different avenues that we've used to get public input along the way. And then of course, the meetings tonight are a continuation of that process. Next slide. So I want to share a little more about what we heard at the first meetings in February. We asked people how they think accessory dwelling units could benefit their neighborhood or family. And we heard a lot about how accessory dwelling units can help meet affordable housing needs, support seniors who wish to age in place, provide more options for multi-generational housing and family support, provide extra income and financial stability for homeowners as well as our broader community. How accessory dwelling units can promote neighborhood stability and a diversity of housing types in our neighborhoods, and that they can also be a form of infill development that reduces sprawl and supports climate solutions. We also heard that people want to see better regulation and improvement of existing units. Next slide. We also asked people what concerns they have about accessory dwelling units. And some of the things we heard were the impact of rental housing, student housing, and mini dorms, short-term rentals, issues of parking and traffic, privacy, neighborhood safety, property values, taxes, potential for speculation, the affordability of accessory dwelling units, the cost to develop an ADU, what the specifics of the proposed regulations would be, how there would be enforcement and monitoring, the impact of sustainability and the urban heat island effects, and then historic standards and neighborhood character were some of the issues that came up. We also asked people what strategies we can think about to address those concerns, and got some great suggestions around the appropriate regulations with respect to the size of ADUs, lot size, setbacks, etc., providing financial assistance to ensure affordability, creating model plans to make it easier to build an ADU, and expediting the permitting process, occupancy requirements, parking requirements, and utility meters, enforcement, neighborhood-based regulations and review, and sustainability incentives were some of the ideas that we heard. Next slide. So I mentioned we also did an online survey that was open for over a month. And we kind of divided the comments into concerned comments and supportive comments, although of course there was a lot of variation in there amidst all of that. And this is a word cloud showing you some of the words that were coming up with the comments that were expressing concerns about this proposal. So some of the things we heard were historic preservation, absentee landlords, heat island effects, student housing, affordability, parking, neighborhood character, just to name a few. So this gives you a sense of some of the concerns that are out there. And we also did one for the supportive comments. And what rose to the top was issues of housing supply, elderly parents, affordability, family, density, sustainability, and our housing crisis and how to deal with that. So interestingly, affordability was really a top issue for everyone across the board, people who expressed concern as well as support. So I want to spend a little time talking about that in just a minute. Next slide. Before I do though, I want to invite a couple members of our stakeholder group to say a few words about the process that group has gone through to really hash out some of the issues associated with this amendment. So there's actually two members of the stakeholder group, actually there's a few more, but two who are going to say a few words tonight. Hal Bergsma with AARP Arizona, as well as Bonnie Poulos with Tucson Residents for Responsive Government. Hal, do you want to say a few words?
Sure, Corin, thank you. So as Corin just mentioned, I do represent AARP on the stakeholder group. I'm a retired planner and I volunteer for AARP, which as an organization heartily supports ADUs for a variety of reasons, some of which Corin has mentioned previously. And so I would be among the proponents on the stakeholder group. There are those that you might describe as concerned citizens, neighborhood representatives. Bonnie probably fits in that group. And so we've had some vigorous discussions about the various issues relating to allowing ADUs in the city of Tucson. Most of those discussions on issues like occupancy, whether an owner has to remain on the property, parking, and of course, affordability. So we're having good discussions. We're going to continue those discussions at another meeting next month, where we'll consider the feedback that's been received through these public meetings. And hopefully, in the end, we'll work with staff to come up with recommendations that go to the Planning Commission and then on to the council and mayor, which will lead to adoption of an ordinance that allows for ADUs in the city. So I'll let Bonnie provide her perspective as well.
Thanks, Hal. Hey, Bonnie. You're muted.
Bonnie Polis here with Tucson Residents for Responsive Government. I've also been a member of the Campus Farm Neighborhood Association for many years. I see a lot of benefits to having accessory dwelling units written into our code, but as a longtime resident of the inner city, I have a lot of concerns that this ordinance be written with the opportunity for most impacted residents to still have a voice in the process. And I think this is incredibly important because those of us who live in older neighborhoods really only have the UDC as a protection for the kinds of lifestyle that we desire and that have caused us to live here for many years. So I'm concerned with process. I think this so far has been a good process, especially considering the kind of situation that has forced us into online meetings and interacting with each other in a way that might not be as conducive for some as for others. I appreciate the ability to be here today at this public meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bonnie and Hal. So on this slide are the goals that the stakeholder group prioritized based on input that we heard from public meetings and other sources. We'll go through these in detail because this reiterates a lot of what we heard from the public in February. But these goals really provided the underpinnings for the draft proposal that you will hear more about in just a minute. Next slide. So I want to just spend a couple minutes talking about affordability and how ADUs can provide affordable housing, because this is kind of a complex topic. Affordable housing definitely is, and ADUs actually function a little differently than some housing that we might be more familiar with. So what are some of the ways ADUs can help support affordable housing? For one, they can add to the supply of housing in our community, kind of a basic level. We've also seen in research that market rate accessory dwelling units tend to rent for less than is typical for the neighborhood where the ADU is located. This means that an accessory dwelling unit that might be located in a higher cost neighborhood, maybe a higher opportunity neighborhood, rents for less than other apartments or other rental units in that neighborhood. So that's a way of providing more housing options and more mixed income neighborhoods in a city. We also see that smaller units like accessory dwelling units can be lower cost to rent. They're usually rented out by a homeowner, usually don't come with all the amenities and on-site gym of newer apartment buildings, so tend to just be lower cost on the market. These units can also be developed and rented for lower costs using subsidies and incentives. That's something we see other cities doing and definitely want to create some programs along those lines in Tucson. And then in terms of home ownership, ADUs also factor into the equation for affordable home ownership. They can provide additional income for a homeowner, which makes homeownership more sustainable for some people and helps promote neighborhood stability. Could be an alternative for someone who maybe is thinking about leaving the neighborhood or getting offers to buy their house. This is a way of stabilizing a neighborhood and making it easier for people to choose to stay in a neighborhood with some extra income. And then lastly, and this is how accessory dwelling units can be a little different, many of these units are not rented on the market. Instead, they serve as housing for family members or friends. So often they are an extension of a household. They're a space for an elderly family member or maybe a returning young adult, or just a way for family members to pool resources, combine resources both financially as well as through caregiving. So sometimes the ADU factors into reduced childcare costs for a family who might now have an aunt or grandparent on site who can help out with some of those household needs. So those are just a couple of ways we see ADUs as helping provide affordable housing for Tucson. With that, I want to turn it over to Dan Bursick, who will share more about the proposal for accessory dwelling units in Tucson.
Excellent. Thank you, Corin. Appreciate it. Thanks to everyone for coming and joining us today and providing your feedback and input and learning about the proposal. So I'm Dan Bursick. I'm a principal planner with the City of Tucson, work on code amendments and things of that sort. Before we get started with the proposal, I do want to mention that if you have questions related to any of this or clarifications or anything of that sort, feel free to throw it in the chat and we'll try to answer those and get you a response for those. And I also want to start off a little bit with what is allowed today, and then that'll kind of set up the conversation for the proposal. So there's really two things that are kind of functioning similarly to accessory dwelling units currently. Those are a sleeping quarters and then full second residential unit. So just to know, sleeping quarters and what they are and where they're allowed. So they are currently allowed on any residentially zoned parcel with a residential use. They are limited to 50% of the size of the principal structure. So if you have a 2,000 square foot home, it would be 1,000 square feet essentially. It's only allowed a kitchenette essentially. So a mini fridge and a microwave is allowed, but a range or a full-size fridge would not be allowed. There's no additional parking required for those. And the max building height is 12 feet unless attached to a principal structure to when it can be as large, go up to whatever the maximum height is for that zone. Sometimes it's like 25 feet for residential zones, it's about right. Second residential units. These are allowed in R1, R2, and R3 zones, and they're based on lot size. So R1 parcels, 10,000 square feet, you're allowed to have a second unit. R2 parcels, 5,808 square feet, and then R3 parcels, it's 1,210. There's no size limit, though in R1, there's a 25% difference from the primary structure. Either can be a primary structure, so ultimately, so I have a house in R1, 1,400 square feet. I could build a 2,000 square foot home in my backyard because I'm larger than 10,000 square feet. Full kitchen is allowed. It is required to be parked per the zoning code requirements, and then the maximum building height is the same as the primary dwelling, generally 25 feet. So that gives you an understanding of kind of what's allowed. We're looking for something really that's kind of in between these two. Something that's smaller, it's not as large as a secondary residential unit, but something that allows for a full kitchen and that type of thing. So that's kind of where we're at. So I'm going to go through the proposal now and kind of give you an understanding of where we're at. So this is a draft proposal. The building size that we're looking at right now, and these are kind of examples down here of what that is. We're looking at 1,000 square feet maximum size for an accessory dwelling unit. It can be 800 square feet, 600 square feet, but the maximum size, the largest size that it could be would be 1,000. One of the things we looked at with the group was really we wanted to allow for enough space for a 2-bedroom unit, but not enough space to really go beyond that. We thought the smaller size, it limits the impact on the neighborhood and surrounding property. So again, trying to keep that smaller. And then it's simple for applicants to understand and staff to administer. And that's kind of the reason why we went with the standard kind of flat square footage versus the percentage, which can be a little arbitrary sometimes, especially when dealing with smaller units and how that turns out. So that's where we're looking at right now for the draft proposal. It's 1,000 square feet, maximum size for accessory dwelling units. Setbacks, development standards related to this, we are not proposing any actual changes to our setbacks. Maximum building height or maximum lot coverage, just basically using the zoning measures. What we had done was, and this is an example in the image here, is that we did an analysis of parcels and lots throughout the city, really. We looked in the more center city area, kind of downtown U of A area. We looked in Midtown, we looked on the east side, and we did an analysis of that to kind of get an understanding of really what could fit. And it seems that in most situations, you could fit an ADU on those parcels within the setbacks and within all of those regulations. We do have a current process, which is our design development option, that does allow for that flexibility that you may need to reduce those setbacks on a site-by-site basis. But as it is, the proposal did not make any changes related to those things. A couple clarifications here were just related to building standards. One, this is not the tiny home on wheels. It must be built on a permanent foundation. ADUs must comply with inclusive home design. So one of the concerns we heard is just accessibility for especially people who are aging in place and seniors. We do have inclusive home design regulations that were passed in 2007 that requires accessible entrances, doorways, and routes, zero-step entry, grab bars, things of that sort. It would have to comply with those. There is a process for a waiver, so there is always that potential, but it really must comply with those type of things. And this is kind of an example here of kind of an accessible route and providing that for that. Where can you build an ADU? So as you saw earlier, it's different for the sleeping quarters versus the second unit. We are looking at all lots with a single family or two family residence may add one ADU, and this is an example of that. For existing homes in newer subdivisions, single family residents may have one ADU so long as it meets lot coverage requirements of the zone. And then new construction and subdivisions will have different standards. We are looking at that right now. It's a little more challenging related to that. So that'll be, we will have that discussion. But as it is right now, all lots with a single family, two family residents may add one ADU. Related to privacy mitigation and historic design standards. So this is something that was a concern that we heard both in our public meetings that we've had and in our stakeholder group. And it's related to the HPZ and the MPZ design regulations. So those will remain in place. And if you are in one of those zones, we will continue to apply those areas to make sure that they ensure the project meets specific design standards. One other thing that came up in this as well is just related to the group dwelling ordinance. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second, but the group dwelling ordinance does still apply. We're not making any changes related to that. That was a concern as well of some of the groups that we met with. Related to parking, and parking is was a big topic that we went over, and this is kind of in the middle of the road proposal that we're looking at here, to where we're looking at one parking space to be required per accessory dwelling unit. That requirement may be satisfied through on-site or on-street parking. On-street parking could potentially use the city parking permit program. We have been in contact with Park Tucson related to this and potential use of that. The parking requirement can be waived based on proximity to transit or potentially bike boulevards. Parking may be accessed from alleys per the UDC regulation. So there is a regulation in the Unified Development Code that has requirements. It's things like 20-foot width on alleys. It's dust mitigation, things of that sort that allow that would actually provide guidance on when you could potentially access an ADU, a park off an alley. I do want to mention there is no change to the parking requirements for sites with 5+ bedrooms in R1 zones. This is that whole thing of 5 over, for every bedroom over 5, you have to add an additional parking space. That will remain in place. We're not making any changes related to that. So ADU occupancy. So as of now, there's no proposed occupancy requirements. But the occupancy ADUs must still comply with the group dwelling regulations. Reasoning for this, and we went through and we've looked at other cities and looked at other places that are doing this. Enforcement of owner occupancy requirements is very, very difficult. It also creates requirements that make it very challenging for homeowners to sell their property if they were to put deed restrictions on those properties. So there are other communities that do have owner occupancy requirements, places like Flagstaff and Durango. We went and spoke with Flagstaff, and the amount of resources that it takes to really monitor the deed restrictions in those properties is significant. And it tends to be in smaller communities where they're able to do so and keep track of that type of thing. We do feel that with having the group dwelling regulations remain unchanged, that'll help address behavioral issues that might be an issue. And then one other thing that we do want to just mention related to this is just that Arizona's limits on regulations for short-term rentals. We really don't have the ability to regulate short-term rentals. I know this has been a big topic, but we do want to reiterate and just got to let people know that the state law keeps us from doing so and effectively really regulating a lot of those. So we don't have the ability to write something in related to short-term rentals, and that's Airbnbs, VRBO, that type of thing. So related to sustainability, we have heard some concerns really about, as you allow for accessory dwelling units, it increases impervious surface or developed area essentially. We were concerned about really the effect, especially on the urban heat island effect, which was brought up. And we went and talked really with the University of Arizona professors, and we looked at a study that was done on Savano related to how to mitigate urban heat island effects of development. One of the things that kind of came through with that is that by the addition of cool roofs, they effectively were able to mitigate the issue related to urban heat island effect. Some of the other conversations we had also was that the dispersed density that occurs within accessory dwelling units have very little effect. In fact, in a lot of cases, if you have a cool roof, it could actually improve the actual heating effect on a lot that may not have a lot of vegetation, essentially. So one of the requirements that we are looking at regulating here is to develop with a cool roof to address that urban heat island effect. We're looking at lower cost methods related to this. It may just be a white roof, but there's always the ability to potentially use some of the new technologies that are out there for this type of thing. One other thing we do want to reiterate is just the project must meet the current energy code. So the current building code and energy code is so much more efficient now, and they have to build to higher standards. Just new buildings in themselves are quite efficient, so they do have to meet the current energy code for the new construction. So just a quick summary of the proposal. So 1,000 square feet maximum accessory dwelling unit size, 1 ADU allowed per residential lot, 1 parking space required per ADU with reductions for transit access, on-street parking, no owner occupancy requirement, existing height, lot coverage, and setback standards all still apply, and then requirement for a cool roof on the accessory dwelling unit for the new construction. 2 things that we did want to talk a little bit about here is just that zoning code can only address so much, and there were other things and other goals of our group and our stakeholder group that we wanted to try to address. And one of those is all of the existing structures that are out there, and how do we bring those into conformance essentially. So we're looking at an amnesty program for unpermitted guest houses. So unpermitted guest houses and sleeping quarters essentially. So figuring out a way to take a sleeping quarters if you want to create an ADU out of it with a full kitchen, looking at that potentially, and then also looking at how do we bring those into conformance with the code, looking at health, life, and safety. We've looked at other municipalities, Durango, several other ones have done things of this sort. So it's really just narrowing down the time frame, whether it's a year or 2 years, to allow for people to come in and do that. There are, in other communities, they've done incentives. Like right now, we charge twice the building permit fee in order to do this. To come into conformance, maybe it would be reducing that a bit, so to encourage people to do so. So that's one program we are looking at to support this. The other one is related to affordable housing. We understand that affordable housing is a major goal of this, and we want to support it even more so than just supply issue and that comes along with ADUs. So we understand. So some of the things that we're looking at here are, partnerships with local organizations like Pima County Land Trust, Quadro, to conduct outreach to provide technical assistance to low and moderate households, developing model plans that can help bring the cost down so you don't have to pay for someone to design it. You can come in, you have a pre-approved plan. We're looking at a design competition potentially for that. And then exploring local funding sources that provide options for financial assistance to people. So other ways that we can support these programs that may be beyond the zoning code issues. So with that, that is the proposal. We have those breakout sessions to talk a bit about it. I've talked kind of quickly, but so I'm gonna hand this over to Bill, and I think we have a short poll as well to send out to you.
That's right, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Well done. So this is good. We're on time. Corin, we're gonna ask you to participate in one of 2 polls. This first poll will be up in a second, which kind of sets us up nicely for the breakouts. It's about what aspects of this draft proposal do you think needs the most refinement? What should the staff be thinking about is the most important thing that needs to be worked on between now and the next draft? So go ahead and jump in here and voice your opinion on this question. And Corin will, she's really good at figuring out when this is gonna wrap up.
We have 26 of 48 have voted. We're at 66% now. Let's see if we can get to 70%.
Okay,
Okay.
if you haven't voted, jump in there now.
Okay, here are the results.
Okay, wow, it's kind of evenly spread between the ADU site standards, parking, sustainability, affordability, with occupancy not far behind, and some others that you would tell her in the chat. And okay, good. There'll be another poll, so stick around after we're done with the breakouts, because another poll is going to be important to see how you feel about this as going forward. So everybody, we're going to ask you in a second to jump into a room. Those rooms are based on the most popular or the biggest things we've heard that are important. ADU size and site conditions, that'll be one room. Parking's another, occupancy is another, sustainability, cost affordability. We're going to have you go about 20 minutes on one topic. So everybody, think about your first choice and your second choice. Okay? Because if you go into a breakout room and there's more than 20 people in that room, we like to cap rooms at 20. So go to your second choice if there's more than 20. Other things, keep going in the chat. Great job on that. Oh, there's a Spanish speaking room. Yes, of course. If you'd like to jump into the Spanish room, and that room would figure out what they want to talk about at that time. How do you do this? Dan, you have a little slide that shows that, an example of that? Yep, okay, so if you go to the breakout rooms, you'll breakout room button on your computer, find it. It's usually, there's like 4 squares, breakout rooms. You go there, and to the right of parking, there's actually a number there. Click on that number and that'll turn into a join button. If you are having trouble getting into a room, ask Dan to put you into the room you want to, and he will place you there. Okay, so everybody go for it. Go to the rooms you want to go to. There'll be staff in that room that'll be facilitating, and let's go for that and see how we're doing. And if you're having trouble, just ask on chat, ask Dan to put you in a room.
And feel free to put it in the chat or just say it out loud, and I'm happy to put you in there. So Mari, yeah, I'm putting you in right now.
Right.
What if you don't care?
We'll choose for you, John.
Great.
My breakout rooms is actually completely blank. Oh, there it redid. Okay, never mind, it came back.
Okay, if there's more than 20 in a room, I would encourage facilitators to ask people to move to another room. And I really encourage you to go round robin again to help everybody. We still have 20, is that right? 23 people still not in the room? Okay. How do you get into a room? You go to breakout rooms. On my screen, it's in the bottom. There's this breakout room button. You go there, you go to the room you want, to the right-hand column, click on it and go join. Right, Dan?
Okay, that is correct. And so Melissa, I see that you're not seeing the breakout option in the toolbar. Which room would you like to go to? Oh, I think I got you. Okay, Keith Elric or Eric?
Yes.
What room can I put you in?
Oh, put me in parking. I'm interested in garages.
I will put you in there. There you go.
Hi, this is Mindy.
Hi, Mindy.
Hi, could you put me in occupancy?
Sure, of course.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Luz Palomares. Can you put me in occupancy?
Of course.
Which one did you put me in, Dan?
All right, John. How does let's put you in occupancy. There's only 5 people in there.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we have a few people left. Let's see, David or Denise or Howard. Can I put you in a room? Kenneth, where would you like me to put you?
I don't see any options other than parking, ADU size, and affordability. Occupancy is where I'd like to go.
Want to go to occupancy? All right, great. I will do that right now. Okay.
Anybody else having trouble?
And just so you know, the breakout button just came up. Somebody changed something.
Oh, okay. Well, it's good to know. Hopefully you should be there in a second.
Yes, Daniel?
Yes.
Yes, I'm interested in zoning. Is there anything that would cover that or?
So they all kind of address zoning, but the ADU size and site construction might work out well for you.
Well, my situation is basically it's dealing with manufactured home and additional RV units.
Okay. Let's put you in maybe an occupancy for now. That might talk, well, you know what? Let's put you in ADU site construction because I think that'll go over those regulations.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Michael or Louise or Howard, can I put you in a room?
My questions would be related to, so the place that I have is where it's a garage conversion, so it's connected to my house. It's all part of the same roof structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What sort of do I need to build firewalls? What sort of changes would I have to make to the interior to make it okay?
Okay, so let me put you in the sustainability group because I just put our building official in there.
Okay.
And he should be able to help you with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. It'll take a second for it to go, but you should go there in a second. Okay, and I have Howard and Roger that are left. Can I put you in a room?
Hey, Daniel, this is Roger. We'll go in sustainability.
Okay, send you right over there now.
Thank you.
Of course.
This is Howard Myers. I'm just here listening. So if you want to put me in any room, that's fine, but I'm just going to listen. Okay.
Okay. Sounds great. I'll put you into parking right now because that's one of the lower numbers. Does that sound all right?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, of course. Okay, so 20.
Well, that didn't work.
Are we just in our own little bubble? I think, can we
Yeah,
join?
we got stuck in our room and our host left.
I think maybe I'm going to try this. If I disappear, this is what it is. Go back to the bottom breakout rooms. And then if you go over, hover over the number in a room, there should be a join button. So I'll try that. If I disappear, that's where I am.
I only had the option to leave the whole kit and caboodle at this point.
Is there a
Or I
breakout?
can
Is there
join-
the share screen record breakout rooms in the bottom center tab?
Ah, yes, there is.
Yeah,
Good.
click the breakout room and that might help. Is that what everybody else's situation is as well?
No, I'm just getting breakout room.
Okay. We have most of our group back.
What have we missed?
Well, thank you everyone for all of your comments in those breakout sessions. Really good conversation and discussion. Really appreciate it. So I hope that worked for most folks.
Is there going to be another? Is there going to be another, or this is the last one you have?
There's one more. We're gonna touch on that in just a second. I am just making sure our survey's ready, and I don't know if we have Bill. We might have lost Bill. Oh no, there he is. Oh, you're muted, Bill.
Oh my goodness. I've been talking a lot. Well, I guess all I have to say is what Corin said, and now we're going to get the poll up, and it's pretty simple. Kind of a scale of how you feel about this.
All right, you guys ready
Okay,
for a
here it
poll?
is. Do you feel this proposal will benefit our community? Strongly agree, somewhat agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. And you're welcome to put the whys, the why you feel this way, in the chat. So we'll let everybody do this. We've done this every night, every day so far.
Okay, we're at 81% voted. Okay, I'm going to close the poll.
So especially those of you who are in the 2, 3, and 4 category, it would be good to hear the whys at some point with staff. Okay.
Everyone
So
see the
there we have
results? Right,
Oh,
so
hold on.
So we see a bit of support, some concerns, or a few in the 4 category, as Bill mentioned. Please feel free to share your comments in chat. Zoom doesn't allow us to take feedback and comments, just do a simple poll. So please share additional thoughts that way. And we'll also be doing this poll on our website where you can actually share more feedback. Okay.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you coming out this evening, spending your time with us. We do want to let you know there is still one more meeting left. So please, again, tell anybody who may want to come, things of that sort. Tell your neighbor, your friends. But we do have one more meeting tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 10:30 for this, and talk a little bit about some of the next steps that we may have. Next steps moving forward, we will be posting a recording of these meetings online with a summary of the comments to the project website. So we're putting that up in the next week so you can access those and look after it. We will be reviewing the feedback received today with the stakeholder group and integrate that into our proposal. We are creating an online poll with an option for additional comments, a little more targeted based on our proposal. Previously, it was more open-ended. It does have an open-ended section, so you can have those comments on there as well if you'd like. We will be developing the draft zoning text and then eventually making our way to our planning commission for a study session and the public hearing. And then they will make a recommendation. It will eventually be at mayor and council for public hearing and consideration. So with that, we'd really like to thank you and for your attendance and participation. And we really appreciate you spending your time with us this evening. So thank you.
Well done, Tucson.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. And thanks for your time and feedback.
Thank
Nice
you.
job, Corin and Dan and everybody. Thank you.
Take care.
Have a great night.
I assume we can send comments to staff directly too.
Yes, you can. And we'll also, as Dan said, we'll have an online This poll will be online with an area for more open-ended comments, and you can share comments that way.
All right. Corinne, when do you expect to post a meeting so that those who haven't attended will see the best of, as you mentioned the other day?
We should be posting a video in the next day or two. Our last meeting is tomorrow, and then we'll have video up. This presentation is already online, the slides themselves.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.